All right, hey everybody, welcome back. I hope you're all doing well. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out as always. So this video is going to represent like my ultimate guide to Vynnset. This is like my ultimate deck tech. It's going to be the last deck tech I'm going to record in quite some time because the reality is the Hunted just released. We got access to Cull. It's a very good piece. I don't think it's as game breaking as we thought it might be originally, but Cull will feature in the list that I talk about today. And in fact, I'm going to talk about multiple lists because the idea here is we're not going to get much more support for Vynnset, if any, until the next set, okay? So I want to talk through everything I've learned, and I want to talk through not only the list that I've landed on, but the different ways you could approach building Vynnset and the different flavors of the deck. So aggro leaning versus mid-range leaning versus somewhere in between. So I am going to talk about where I landed. I'm going to go through my current deck list that's been working for me, but I'm also going to showcase a couple different builds for Vynnset to give you the tools necessary to identify maybe the list that works best for your playstyle, but also maybe the list that works best in the current meta, which is still being solved, okay? So before we get into that, I also owe you guys a giveaway. So this giveaway for the Zen Tamer of Purpose Shadowbox Altar was stapled to our first of a series of Team Zen State Gauntlet style videos. And so I've loaded up the comments from that video. We're going to pick one and see who won. So Jason Crandall, 8859, congratulations. Love your Shadowboxes. Thanks. Appreciate that. We share the same name, by the way. I go by Jay, but my name is Jason. So great name. They're amazing. Thank you again. Still really want a Riptide one. Well, you know what? Reach out. We'll figure something out for you. Goal. So I asked about your goal for the upcoming year. Goal of the year for me is to improve my armory win rate. Great goal. For a while, I was tracking my armory win rate and trying to stay at like twice the amount of wins as I have losses. That was sort of like my goal for a long time. I don't know where I'm at anymore. I don't think I'm quite there, but you know, 2 wins for every armory, pretty good. Anyways, thank you so much for commenting. Congratulations. You're gonna have to get in touch with me, so you can reach out. You can reach me at zenstatefab@gmail.com. So email is in the description of the video. Just reach out. Give me your contact information, so your address. And we'll talk about the Riptide altar. If you're not a big fan of Zen, totally fine. We'll chat and we'll figure something out. Okay, awesome. So congrats once again to our winner. I'm gonna start our journey exploring Vynnset here. So I mentioned I want to talk about the different flavors of Vynnset, different ways you can build the hero, and Redline Vynnset holds a special place in my heart. I want to start here. And this deck sort of represents an aggro-leaning version of the deck. We can see right off rip at the top of the screen here, 6 yellows, 45 reds. So very hard redline list. Super high damage output potential in this list. So very capable. The idea of this list is like, we're going to go as wide as possible, present as many attacks as possible, and push as much damage as possible every turn. So the damage output is inflated in this list. What we're sacrificing in is consistency a little bit, which is something Vynnset struggles with. So the way I think about these lists and the way I think about Vynnset in general now, I have a science background, so I'm thinking scientific. I think about a graph, like a Cartesian grid with like X, Y axes. And like in the X direction, again, I'm a nerd. This is how my brain's working. In the X direction, we have aggro on one side. Doesn't matter what side, whatever. We have aggro on one side and we have mid-range or defensive on the other side. Okay, so that's our one axis, aggro to defensive. This build is leaning aggro for sure. Probably pretty far on the one side of the scale in aggro. In the Y-axis, we have consistent and inconsistent, I guess you can think about it. And so this red line, it's leaning aggro, but we're sacrificing inconsistency a little bit. So that's something to keep in mind. That's how I'm choosing to think about it. So let's go through it. I'm going to spend some more time for those of you who are new to the hero and coming to this video to learn a little bit more about how the hero works. Welcome, first and foremost. Lots of Vynnset content on the channel, so please consider subscribing. But I want to go through the cards with a little more of a fine-tooth comb, and then we'll speed up when we look at the next couple lists. So this is my Redline list, aggro leaning, sacrificing inconsistency a little bit. We have 3 Beseech the Demigons. This is a shadow non-attack action that just buffs your next attack in Banish +3. So you target a Runegate card, it buffs it by 3. The beauty of shadow non-attack actions is they trigger Vynnset's second ability. So Vynnset, as you likely already know, the beginning of your turn, you're going to banish a card from hand to make a rune chant. The second ability is whenever a shadow non-attack action card is played, you can choose to pay a life in order to make your first rune chant unpreventable. So then you're pushing Unpreventable Arcane. The fact that you took a damage and are pushing unpreventable damage towards your opponent means that both of you are going to lose life, which is relevant for our Runegate card. So let's read a random Runegate card before we move on. So this hero is built around the Runegate mechanic. These are the cards you're going to want to banish at the beginning of your turn to Vynnset's first ability. Runegate reads, if you control rune chants equal to or greater than this card's casting cost, so 2, you can play it for free, essentially. So you can pay it without paying its cost from Banish. Okay, and this reads, when the combat chain closes, gain life equal to the number of heroes who have lost life this turn. So if you push Unpreventable Arcane with a shadow non-attack action card by taking a life yourself, you've both lost life now, and Deathly Delight will gain you 2 life. Or a card like Deathly Wail will make you 2 rune chants. This says, when the combat chain closes, create rune chant tokens equal to the number of heroes who have lost life this turn. So again, if you push Unpreventable Arcane by taking a damage yourself, you're guaranteeing 2 rune chants. So you guarantee like full effect on your Runegate cards with these shadow non-attack action cards. So that's one reason this is in the list. So it helps to sort of just ensure that our Runegate on hurt abilities, we get full value on them. Okay, so Beseech the Demagon, 3 of main board. Bounding Demagon, I kind of count in my Runegate, even though it's not a Runegate card, it does have a condition. We have to play a non-attack action card in order to play this out, but we can banish it. We're happy to banish it from Vynnset's ability, even though it's not Runegate, because it costs 0 and we can play it from Banish. So the only condition is that we have to have played a non-attack action in order to unlock this and come in. Comes in for +1, so 4 from Banish. So this is a great chain ender. Play a bunch of things, go as wide as possible, end the turn on this card, a 0 for 4. Great. Also gives us another target in hand to banish. I'll talk about that later, but we need a critical mass of cards that we're happy to banish to Vynnset's ability. Otherwise, we're going to get stuck with hands that are just full of stuff we don't want to banish, and that feels awkward. So Bounding's there as a 0 for 4 chain ender. Cull, which I already mentioned, is our new card that we got in the Hunted. This reads, you can play this from your banish zone, so we're happy to banish it at the beginning of our turn if this is all we have. If a hero's lost life this turn, we can play it as though it were an instant, and the only other text on it is each hero banishes a card from their hand. If we don't have any cards in hand, we can still play this out. We can't banish, we can't fulfill this requirement, but our opponent still needs to. Or in this build, I think what Cull does is increase the damage output and increase the aggro capability of this list. So again, this Redline list, far on the aggro axis, is aiming to try and go as wide as possible. In order for us to go super wide, we need extra Runegate cards or extra attacks that are playable from our Vanish Zone. This piece in this list can represent, it's also Shadow non-attack, can be the tool we need to get extra things in our Banish Zone late game in order to go like 2 wide and present 2 Runegate cards in 1 turn, or go 3 or 4 wide. Okay, so Cull in this list, I think, represents more of an aggro piece. It also interacts with your opponent's hand, so that can strip cards from hand so that we can really go over the top and push damage. So Cull is good for that reason. In other lists, we'll look on the other end of the spectrum in a little bit. When we look at our defensive mid-range list, Cull in that case represents, it's not so much about getting our cards in our banish, it's more about interacting with our opponent's hand often. So Cull is a pretty versatile piece, and it's gonna play out a little bit differently, I think, depending on what your list looks like. Okay, so in this aggro list, I'm looking at this as a chain extender, as a way to get extra Runegate cards in Banish that we can hopefully cheat in during a big, wide turn. So we have Call. It also blocks for 3, so that's nice. Deadwood Dirge, this card is a staple card. It's in every list now. If you're not on Deadwood Dirge and Malefic Incantation, so these are 2 pieces that we got access to in Rosetta that are just like, they make deck go burr. They are what the deck needed in order to be more consistent. So this deck would really, really struggle in terms of inconsistency if it didn't have these pieces. So Deadwood Dirge allows us to turn an aura into 3 rune chants. That aura is often the first rune chant we make from Vynnset's ability. So the idea is we banish a card to Vynnset's ability, a Runegate card hopefully, make a rune chant, turn that rune chant into 3 rune chants with Deadwood Dirge, which unlocks our Runegate cards, and we're able to start swinging stuff. So Deadwood Dirge is amazing. It needs to be. It's going to be in all 3 lists that we look at today, and it's in this one just as a consistency piece and make deck go burr, essentially. From here, we have, I'll go over the equipment in a little bit, but from here we get into our Runegate cards, and we need a critical mass of these Runegate cards. We already looked at Deathly Delight. It's a 2 for 5, so we need 2 rune chants in order to cheat it in, and it gains us life sometimes. Deathly Wail is another one of those consistency pieces. We really want to float rune chants over to the next turn as much as possible, just so that we're not starting our turn on 0 rune chants. If we do, it makes it quite difficult to just like get going or get started. So Deathly Wail is like fuel in our engine, especially paired with a Shadow non-attack action, guaranteeing both heroes lost life. We will end the turn on 2 rune chants, which is just great. It can either allow us to go wide and cheat in another Runegate card after this when we close the chain, or float them to the next turn to just smooth out our next turn. For that reason, it's one of the only cards I'm running also at yellow. So I think we just need a certain amount of these Deathly Wails, again, as fuel for our rune chant generation engine. So 6 Deathly Wails at red and at yellow. Eloquent Eulogy is a nice 1-card hand. It's a 1 cost 4, so just by banishing this, it makes the rune chant we need to cheat this out for free. And if our opponent decides to take damage, or if we manage to take damage, when we close the chain, we will make an Eloquence token. Eloquence simply breaks whenever we play our next non-attack action card and gives that non-attack action card Go Again. A lot of our non-attack action cards already have Go Again, but something like Cull, if we're not able to play it out at instant speeds, it can give Cull Go Again. It can give something like, we'll get to it in a little bit, I thought there was Read the Runes in this list, but we'll look at Read the Runes from another list. We can sometimes get value from Eloquence, but honestly, sometimes it doesn't matter. The best case scenario is like, we can play Call at instant speeds, meaning your opponent has lost life. We have Eloquence out. If we play Call at instant speeds and we give it Go Again with Eloquence, it actually restores our action point. So it can represent getting an action point back, banishing something we want in putting something in our banish zone, maybe breaking chain on Whale, coming in with that thing. So yeah, there can be some shenanigans between Call and Eloquence and all this kind of good stuff. But otherwise, Eloquent Eulogy is just a 1-card 5. So you banish it, you make your rune chant, you come in for 1, the rune chant, and 4, this card. So pretty good in terms of consistency as well. Malefic Incantation allows us to make rune chants after we swing. So this enters with 3 verse counters the next 3 times. So like once per turn when we attack. This ticks down, makes us a rune chant. So it allows us to have a rune chant after our initial swing, or like roll some of those rune chants over the next turn. Then we get into like, these are like some pretty aggro pieces. So I'm running 3 of Mavrian Skies on red. So this gives your next rune chant attack action card Go Again. And if it hits, we create 3 rune chants. So this is an on hit that your opponent cannot allow to resolve. So your opponent needs to respect your attack and block it out, because we say Go Again. Let's say we cheat out our first Runegate attack. If it hits, we make 3 rune chants. That's going to unlock our banish zone. So if we have extra Runegate attacks in Banish, or if we're able to get extra Runegate attacks in Banish with tools like Cull or Pumpkin / Jack-O-Lantern that we'll talk about in a little bit, it would allow us to just like throw another 9 damage at them. So this is something, Maiden Skies is something they need to respect. A lot of these old decks, like honestly, Redline, like we can't run Pummel because we don't have resources to pitch for Pummel. But the reason Pummel was good or is good in certain deck lists is to force this on hit and make 3 rune chance. The next card is Revel in Runeblood. This one requires us to play a non-attack action and an attack action in order to make 4 rune chant tokens, which is very good. Again, another way to unlock our Banish Zone. So if we're able to get multiple attacks in Banish, you can see that that's a theme, which is why I think Cull represents an offensive piece in this type of list, allowing us to get those extra cards in Banish, allowing us to cheat those things in with stuff like Revel in Runeblood or Malefic / Deadwood Dirge. Like Malefic makes 1 after we swing, Deadwood Dirge can turn it into 3, unlock our Banish Zone. So all of these pieces are letting Maiden Skies hit, we get 3 rune chants, unlock our Banish Zone. So like you can kind of already get the sense that we're trying to cheat multiple things in, multiple rune gate cards in per turn. Shadow Puppetry again allows us to get go again, so next attack action card gets +1 and go again, and it has a relevant on hit, another way to get extra cards in our Banish Zone. On hit, if the attack hits, look at the top card of your deck, you can banish it. So if we manage to see a rune gate card off top, we can put it in our Banish Zone, unlock our Banish Zone with Revel in Runeblood or Malefic Dirge, or another way to generate rune chants that I'm not thinking about, multiple Malefics, whatever. Close chain on Deathly Wail, make rune chants. So there's lots of ways to generate rune chants after our first attack. Shadow Puppetry is another way to get extra cards in Banish. Swarming Gloomveil in the main board is a chain extender. So the idea is like, you often don't want to start with Swarming Gloomveil because the idea is like you start the turn with like 3 rune chants. This is not always the case, but let's say you start the turn on 3 rune chants. You want to do like maybe Shadow Puppetry Wail. So then it's coming in for like 3. Take the damage, by the way, on Shadow Puppetry with Vynnset's second ability. Present Wail for 3 and 7. It'll get +1 from Shadow Puppetry. Go again. We're not closing the chain. We can follow it up with Swarming Gloomveil to extend that chain. Depending on how many auras we made, it's either going to come in for 3 go again. So the first ability, if we make 1 aura, it gains go again. If we make 2 auras, it gains +1 and go again. If we make 3 auras, it gains +1, go again, and on hit, when this hits a hero, they can't prevent arcane damage from sources you control this turn. So then it makes the rest of your arcane for the turn unpreventable, which can win you the game if your opponent's not respecting this. Late game, imagine they let it hit, you follow it up with a Revel in Runeblood, make like 4 rune chants, maybe close the chain on Deathly Wail, make another 2. Then you have 6 unpreventable rune chants. That might be enough to end the game, right? So this is often a mid, like a chain extender after your first rune gate attack. Swing with this, then try and keep going. The beauty of Swarming Gloomveil is it pairs really nicely with Malefic Incantation. So imagine this scenario. We banish whatever card. Let's say we banish Eloquent Eulogy. So we make 1 rune chant at the beginning of our turn. We play like Maiden Skies. Okay, give it go again. Then play the Eloquent Eulogy. We need a Malefic Incantation. So we play Malefic Incantation. This represents our second aura. So we made 1 aura, rune chant on banish. Then we play like, let's say, Malefic Incantation. This is our second aura. Then we play Maiden Skies or something. Eloquent Eulogy. On swing, Malefic Incantation ticks down, makes us another rune chant. This is our third aura. Now when this resolves with the go again from Maiden Skies, we can come in with Swarming Gloomveil, all modes online. So even just Malefic Incantation, Swarming Gloomveil will allow at least the first 2. Like if this was already in, let's say you already had the Malefic in play, same line, Eloquent Eulogy, make a rune chant, Maiden Skies, swing Eloquent Eulogy, Malefic, even though we didn't play it that turn, will still make you a rune chant. So we have 2 auras that we made that turn. And then Swarming's coming in for 4 go again. A great middle-of-the-road chain extender. The rest of the deck is honestly just filling in the rest of the rune gate cards we need. So this is a 3 for 7 that does nothing else, but we can cheat it in if we have 3 rune gates or rune chants. 2 for 6, which also does nothing else, but cheated in with 2 rune chants. Then we have our Widespread Ruin, so another 2 for 6. This one, when the combat chain closes, each hero who has lost life banishes the top card of their deck. Another way, another roundabout way, if we take damage from Vynnset's second ability, we can banish gas off the top of our deck, which allows us to extend the chain, etc., etc. So another way to get extra ammunition in your banish zone. And Widespread Destruction, a disruptive piece, 3 cost rune gate for 6, so we need 3 rune chants to play it out for free. When the combat chain closes, each hero who's lost life this turn banishes a card from their arsenal. Often not targeting our own arsenal. Often this is a disruptive piece for your opponent. So when you close the chain, they will have to banish their arsenal, and that can make them sad. So another thing I'll mention at this point, and you'll notice this in all of our lists, is we need a critical mass of both Runegate cards and cards we're happy to banish so that we don't get stuck with hands full of stuff we don't want to banish, like Revels. We don't want to banish Revel, get 1 value off of this potential thing that makes us 4 value usually. We don't want to banish like Mobs or Shadow Puppetry. So we have 3, 6, 9, 12. I'm just counting the Runegate cards. 12, 15 plus 6 is 21, plus 3 is 24. I'm going to count Calls because those are also happy to... So 24 Runegate cards. Plus Calls 27, plus Bounding Demagon, another card we're happy to banish, is 30. So 30 cards in deck, in main board, that we are happy to banish. And this reduces the probability of us drawing into a hand that contains no cards that we want to banish to like 6%. So 94% of the time, we're going to draw at least 1 card, a Runegate card, a Call, or a Bounding Demagon that we're okay to banish to Vynnset's first ability. So that's about where you want to be. 30 is, regardless of how you're building this list, aggro leaning, defensive leaning, whatever. That's something I wanted to highlight here before we move on. So this is a 51 card main board. Let's talk about the equipment a little bit because this is like ultra aggro leaning. I'm talking about like the far end of that spectrum, that aggro to defensive access. So Carrion Husk is the most aggressive piece. It blocks for 6. You got to be careful because if you drop below 13 at the beginning of your turn, you will have to banish this and it starts to kill you. It does have Blood Debt. But this is like, could turn the game. So this is better into heroes that can go tall. This isn't great into go wide heroes. And depending on how the meta looks, that's why like you have to make decisions about these pieces. So if the meta starts to lean more aggro and we start to get more go wide heroes like Syndra, Phi, etc., etc., then we have to think twice about Carrion Husk because you're never going to get the 6 value off of this. So a better piece would be Dyadic Carapace, which blocks for 2 and then blocks for 1. So it does a good impression of Carrion Husk. So we'll get 3 value instead of 6, but it doesn't kill us when we block with it. It doesn't have Blood Debt. But Carrion Husk is like the big aggro. The idea is like it'll allow us to block 6 during a turn where we want to keep our whole hand in order to go super wide. So Carrion Husk, I would suggest making room for Dyadic Carapace in the list as well. But this is our default piece if we're trying to lean super aggro. Face Purgatory is sort of the same situation where it's not as good in go wide against go wide heroes because max value for Face Purgatory, this says when it defends together with an attack and a non-attack action card, you draw a card and your opponent discards a card. So it's disruptive. It strips a card from your opponent's hand, which is very good in go wide heroes when they're like relying on that for resources or relying on that for like another 4 damage go again. But in a go wide hero where they're kind of low to the ground and the most they're presenting is like 4, imagine blocking with this plus like Cull plus like a 3 block Runegate card. You've blocked 8 on a 4, so you've way overblocked. Just to strip a card, you do get to draw a card, which is like fine, but like this, to get full value off Face Purgatory, it needs to be into a go tall hero as well. So worthwhile, since we're sacrificing a little bit in terms of consistency, it would be worthwhile to also include room for Crown of Providence, which can allow us to filter our hand in case we do draw into an awkward, hand that we can't really do much with, okay? So I would suggest if you want to build Redline in this economy, I would suggest you can keep Carrion Husk in the list. I think it's a great offensive aggro piece. Keep Face Purgatory in the list. Same thing. Really good aggro piece. I'm trying to showcase super aggro Vynnset in this. But I would make room for Crown of Providence and Dyadic Carapace as little utility pieces. I'm also defaulting Flail and Bloodied Oval. You could take Bloodied Oval out of the list, and that would make room for either Crown of Providence and Carrion Husk. If you're comfortable running Grimoire. So Grimoires are also in this list, and this could be your default offhand. It makes you an Eloquence, which could facilitate that really wide, game-ending turn at the end, giving a call, go again, playing it in instant speed, restoring your action point, getting something else in your banish, going super wide, stripping a card from your opponent's hand. So yeah, by all means, if you're comfortable, I don't have enough experience with Grimoire to break the game in half with it, so I still favor the extra block that I get from Bloodied Oval. But by all means, if you're a Grimoire stan, makes sense, put it in the list, cut Bloodied Oval, or keep them both if you find other room. Spellbound Creepers, I'm not going to spend time on. I filmed a whole video, a comprehensive guide on Spellbound Creepers, how to use it both offensively and defensively, how to get full value from it, so please go and take a look at that video. I talk through Vynnset line specifically as a Vynnset main, so I think that will be a really helpful video for you to unlock this piece. But this is our only boots. This is all we'll ever have on our feet. It's very, very good. And in an aggro build like this, it's necessary in order to unlock creepers plus one of our go wide, like a Mauvrion Skies or Shadow Puppetry alone allows us to go 3 wide, which is insane. So again, I'm not going to explain. Go take a look at that video, my comprehensive guide on creepers. If you haven't already, you'll just have to dig a little bit in the video list of videos. It wasn't that long ago. Vexing Quillhand is our default hand piece. It's also our only hand piece. It doesn't make sense to run Grasp in this Redline list because we're never going to be pitching for it. Because it costs 3 usually when it gets the tax for having a Rune Gate or a Rune Chant. So Vexing Quillhand we'll break it and make 2 Rune Chants whenever we're trying to unstick ourselves or go extra wide, unlock our Banish Zone. So now, 51 card main board, we're looking for 9 cards to side in from the sideboard. In the sideboard, 2 main packages. We have an aggro package, which represents or is represented by Jack-O-Lantern. Super, super fun card. This is a shadow non-attack action card, so it triggers Vynnset's second ability, and it reads, banish the top card of your deck. If it's red, create a Rune Chant. So this is a tool for us to get extra Rune Gate cards in Banish so that we can unlock our Banish Zone and go, present multiple Rune Gate cards in one turn. It also makes us a Rune Chant token, which helps us unlock our Banish Zone. This plus Malefic Incantation, for example, allows us to have 2 Rune Chants, which would allow us to play any of our 2-cost Rune Gate cards. And we're not always going in blind. So it says banish the top of your deck if it's red. Most of our cards are red, so that's fine. But we also kind of want to hit a Rune Gate card, right? It's giving us that gas in our Banish Zone. So we're not always going in blind. We can sometimes take a peek at the top of our deck thanks to Shadow Puppetry. If they let that attack hit, we get to look at the top of our deck, choose to banish, or keep it there. If we're going to pumpkin, then we know exactly what we're going to banish. Another way we get to see what's on top of our deck is Ravenous Rabble. So Ravenous Rabble, great piece in any Redline deck. You also reveal the top of your deck, so we get to see what's on top of our deck. If it's red, this comes in for 0 for 4 go again. So it fills a similar slot to Swarming Gloomveil, where it's one of those chain extenders, like a middle attack. Allows us to go extra wide, allows us to take a peek at what's on top of our deck, to know whether we want to banish it from Jack-O-Lantern, to know whether we want to banish it from Widespread Ruin, etc., etc. So this works really well for a couple different reasons in this build, but also just allows us to go wide. So the aggro package, Jack-O-Lantern, Ravenous Rabble, Succumb to Temptation is in the sideboard here. I wouldn't side in Succumb along with Rabble and Jack-O-Lantern. These two cards care about revealing red cards off top, and so putting in more yellow cards, going up from 6 misses in the deck to 9 misses in the deck, not great. So I'm probably, like, Succumb is an amazing piece. It too can restore our action point. If your opponent takes arcane damage, we can play this at instant speeds. If the next thing hits, we also get to look at their hand and strip a card. So it's a very, very like aggro leaning piece. Blocks for 3, it has a lot going for it. But the fact that it has go again, if we're able to play it at instant speed, restores our action point, allows us to go wide. So I would classify this as an aggro piece, but it just doesn't pair well with the rest of our aggro package. So in terms of an aggro package, I might actually put in the Haunting Renditions, which is a versatile piece. It allows us to either discard to prevent 2 and make a rune chant, or just block for 4. So situational, really versatile. So my aggro package might be Haunting Rendition, Jack-O-Lantern, Ravenous Rabble. The beauty of this list too, even though it is like built around going wide and doing the scary aggro thing, we're not sacrificing on defensive pieces. So we have access to 9 4 blocks. The Haunting Renditions, which is a Runeblade block on 4. And we have access to 6 more D-reacts. So Reduced to Rune Chant, which gets a cost reduction based on the number of rune chants we control. So as long as we control 1 rune chant, meaning as long as we floated a rune chant to our next turn, we end on a rune chant, this is going to be free during our opponent's turn. It'll block for 4 and make us a rune chant token. So it has a lot going for it in this list. We'll also have Sink Below, which helps to account for some of the inconsistency introduced in this list by trying to go aggro. So Sink Below can help us fix our hand and also block 4. So honestly, if you're like, I don't care about defense, I'm going to go full gas, no breaks, cut maybe a Sink Below. Cut a Sink Below to put in Dyadic Carapace to get some more utility pieces. You might cut all the Sink Belows. I don't care about the inconsistency. I'm going to cut all the Sink Belows, put in Dyadic Carapace. What was the other utility piece that we were talking about? Crown of Providence. So you can easily make room for those with the Sink Belows. I don't know. But this version of the list, we do have access to 9 4 blocks. Okay, so we can still, do the defensive thing when we need to. Envelop in Darkness, I love this piece. It's a little awkward that it costs 1, especially in this Redline list when we don't want to be pitching much at all. We just want to cheat things in using the Rune Gate mechanic. I'm only ever putting the... Envelops are great, by the way. It's a shadow non-attack action, allows us to proc Vynnset's second ability, creates us a Rune Chant token, which can unlock our Banish Zone, and it buffs our next Rune Gate attack +3. Doesn't pair with Bounding Demagon. It's not a Rune Gate attack. So, there are some restrictions, but the biggest restriction is that it costs 1. I'm only ever sideboarding these in if I'm also siding in Tunic. So if I think the game's going to go a little bit longer, 6 turns or more, if I'm able to get 2 activations on Tunic, then I can put Tunic in. And if I'm putting Tunic in, Envelop in Darkness is probably coming in as well, because Tunic resource will either pay for Envelop in Darkness or discount Spellbound Creepers. So that Tunic resource will go into paying for Spellbound Creepers, allowing us to activate it for free. Okay. So there you go. So I also have Ebonfold to protect us from wizards for Spell Void 2. Haunting Rendition is a good wizard piece as well by discarding and preventing damage. So that's my far aggro leaning Vynnset list. This is one way to build Vynnset. Let's more quickly, I won't spend as much time on all the pieces now that we're familiar with sort of their role in this type of, in this hero, in Vynnset. Let's go to the opposite end of that x-axis, the defensive end, the mid-range end of that build. So this is my hard mid-range list. You'll notice some differences right away. We have some blues, 9 blues, 11 yellows, 34 reds. Right away, no pumpkins, no jack-o'-lanterns, no ravenous rabbles. Those are Redline only type things. We are still running Cull, but as mentioned, Cull might play a different role in this type of list. In this type of list where, you know, the goal of this list really is more defensive. So we're often giving up a lot of cards on your opponent's turn and then just doing like one thing, like banishing a card, sending it in. So then we're like floating Rune Chance to our next turn to just like smooth out that play pattern, getting value from block, then presenting, getting big value on our cheater Rune Gate stuff, right? So in that strategy, Cull allows us not to fill our banish zone, but more to interact with our opponent and strip a card from their hand, okay? So that's more what Cull does in this type of list. Deadwood Dirge again. This is just a staple piece, turning 1 Rune Chant into 3 Rune Chants. The ceiling on this, by the way, is like if the opponent plays like Codex of Frailty with our new assassins. It's a, you know, a piece we're going to encounter even more now. If they make a Frailty token, turn the Frailty token into 3 Rune Chants. Beautiful. If they make a Bloodrot Pox token, instead of taking 2 damage at the end of your turn, you're going to turn that into 3 Rune Chants. Beautiful thing. So Deadwood Dirge, awesome. Now, same sort of like pieces we need for Rune Gate. So Deathly Delight gains us life. Deathly Whale, now we're on 9 of them. So Rainbow Whale, reds, yellows, and blues in order to just get that engine going. Closing chain, making extra Rune Chants, maybe floating those Rune Chants to the next turn. And I'm not saying this list is incapable of going too wide. It'll go too wide. It's just not going to go 4 wide like the aggro list. And that's okay. We get value in different ways. So 9 of Deathly Whale, Eloquent Eulogy, so 1 for 4, Rune Gate card. Our other Rune Gate cards, I have 1 of Phantom Banshee, that 3 for 7, instead of 3 of. And then we have our Phantom Rates, 2 for 6, Widespread Ruin, 2 for 6, Widespread Destruction, 3 for 6, which targets Arsenal, and 1 new card we didn't see, because now we can play blues, we're happy to play blues. Widespread Annihilation is a 4-cost Rune Gate card for 6, but arguably the most disruptive of our Rune Gate cards. So we need to build up 4 Rune Chants. Then we present this for 4 Rune Chants and 6 physical. If they take any damage at all, including the Rune Chants, when we close the chain, they're going to have to banish a card from hand. So super impactful, super disruptive. So this is... so let's just count out the Rune Gate cards, or the cards we're happy to banish. 3, 6, 9, 12, 13... plus 9 is 22, 25, 28 with the, so 28 Rune Gate cards plus the culls, which we're also happy to banish to Vynnset's ability. We go up to 31 again. So that 30 is like sort of where we want to be to reduce the variance enough so that we always sort of, or most of the time, 94% of the time, have something we're happy to banish to Vynnset's ability. Beyond that, this is a defensive build, mid-range leanings or doing a lot of blocking. So a piece like Haunting Rendition, which again is very versatile and is useful in most, if not all matchups, it's in the main board, is in the main board. So blocks for 4, prevents damage, can create Rune Chants. The main distinction, I think, because you'll notice like same Rune Gate cards, Deadwood Dirge, Malefic Incantation, like there's a lot of overlap between these lists. But instead of trying to go wide, unlocking our banish zone, getting multiple things in banish, coming in with multiple Rune Gates per turn, what we're sacrificing in that, we are gaining in consistency by running more Malefic Incantations. So now we're on the reds and 2 yellows, so 5 Malefic Incantations and Sonata Galaxia. So this costs 1 less to play for each Rune Chant you control. If you control 4, the cost is XX. So if you control 4 Rune Chants, you can declare X equals 2, 2, and 2. Allows us to search our deck for Runeblade Aura with cost X or less, put it into the arena, then shuffle. And if X is 2 or more, meaning, it's free if we have 4 Rune Chants, it gets go again. So Sonata Galaxia is in the mid-range list as a consistency piece, as another tool to fetch Malefic Incantations, allowing us to have rune chants after we swing our first attack, or Runeblood Incantation. So this is only in the list as a tutor target for Galaxia. We don't really want to draw into this card because it costs 1. And even though we have more blues, we're not really wanting to pitch to pay for stuff. We are okay paying for this if we do draw into it. We cross our fingers and hope that Tunic is online. So Tunic is the default chess piece in this mid-range list. The game is going to go a little bit longer. We're not going to be going 4 wide. We're not going to be presenting 31 damage in a turn. Although this list can still go 2 wide and we can still present well over 20 damage in a turn. So it's still fun. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, it does have those consistency pieces. So Sonata Galaxia is what we use to thin our deck, tutor for these pieces, these rune chant generators that allow us to end on rune chants. So the name of this game again is to block a bunch with our superfluous rune gate cards and other stuff that we don't mind blocking with. Having these malefic incantations in play, swinging one of our rune gate cards on our turn, ending on rune chants, moving on with our life. So that's sort of the play pattern of this list. It does still run Shadow Puppetry. This is just a nice consistency piece. It's a Shadow non-attack action card. It can give us extra cards in Banish when we need it, but it allows us to have that go again piece and sometimes go 2 wide. We do still want to be able to go 2 wide and take advantage of the rune chants that Malefic create for us or that Deathly Wail creates for us on Chain Close, all that kind of stuff. We also have Succumb to Temptation in main board, so this is another way for us to interact with our opponent on our turn. So instead of going 2 wide, well, I mean, this does restore our action point, so it can facilitate a 2 wide plan. But more importantly, on hit, we get to look at our opponent's hand and strip a card from their hand, disrupting their next turn. So yeah, the game's going to go longer. We're playing a disruptive game plan. We're playing a blocking plan, and we're getting value from our cheating of Runegate cards. There is a decent amount of go again in this list. Like, we have access to Machinations as well. It's a 3 block, so we're happy to play it in this list where we're blocking. So often we're going to be blocking with it. But once in a while, when our hand lines up, we are going to use it for the go again in order to go 2 wide and take advantage again of the rune chance created by things like Malefic Incantation or Deathly Wail. So, in the sideboard, this is a 54 card main board. We're looking for 6 cards in sideboard. We have access to 6 more D-Reacts, so 6 more 4 blocks, Reduce to Rune Chant, and Sink Below. Or if we want to lean aggro, if we're going first, Read the Runes is cool, allows for good setup. And in this list where we're okay taking a turn off, like maybe we got to restart our Rune Chant engine. And like all we can do on our turn is banish a card and play out Read the Runes. That's awesome. We just end on Rune Chants, move on. Next turn we can block a bunch, and then we'll have a bunch of Rune Chants to be able to cheat something in. So Read the Runes becomes more valuable in a list like this. If the stars align, we can take advantage of like an Eloquence token that we make from Eloquent Eulogy or something to make 3 Rune Chants with Go again. But my aggro pieces are either like Beseech the Demagon, Read the Runes becomes more important if we're going first as well, or Envelop in Darkness, because again, we're trying to grind the game out. We're going to get multiple Tunic activations often, and that Tunic resource can once again pay for Creeper's activation when we need it, or pay for a nice piece like Envelop in Darkness. So another Shadow non-attack action that makes us a Rune Chant and buffs our next thing by 3. So, and then we have Oblivion. Oblivion makes us a nice friendly demon, which likes to swing for 6, as long as we have exactly 6 Rune Chants. So, another reason that, if we are taking multiple turns off, if we're making a bunch of Rune Chants, the cool thing about Oblivion is it actually, it works really well with Malefic Incantation. Okay, here's the situation. Let's say we have 4 Rune Chants that we've built up. Okay, maybe we ended on a couple Rune Chants the last turn. We played a Reduce, made 1 on their turn, and we banished something. So we start on 4 Rune Chants. If we have 2 Malefic Incantations up and we swing with something, even though we only have 4 Rune Chants, we let the malefics resolve first, right? They all proc when we attack. So on attack, the malefic incantation triggers go on the stack, and they both will create a rune chant. So if we have 2 malefic incantations on board, we let them resolve first. They each make us a rune chant. Now we have control of 6 rune chants, even though 2 of them are on the back end and 4 of them are on the chain about to pop. We still control 6 rune chants, even though we only started the turn on 4. So that allows us to play out Oblivion, make a nice demon friend. If we can get extra action points or have go again, we can then end our turn by swinging with demon. So Oblivion, also a very impactful piece in a mid-range list like this. Beyond that, Dyadic Carapace, we're not going to run Carapace because we're grinding the game out and we don't want to die to it. So Dyadic Carapace cosplays as Carrion Husk. It's also AB2. Our wizard matchup is much better on a mid-range list like this. We have access to lots of blues. We have access to our Ebb and Fold for Spell Void. We have access to AB4 with Grimoire, Dyadic Carapace, and Vexing Quillhand. So this blocks when it needs to in a go wide against a go wide hero, and it ABs when it needs to into wizards like Kano. Reaping Blade is our final piece, and this is only in the list for Count Your Blessings. So we have CYB, Count Your Blessing New floating around. We have Count Your Blessing Enigma floating around. I even ran into a Count Your Blessing Bravo, which made me very sad recently. So Reaping Blade, it's hard to navigate those matchups. And by the way, I'm returning to the short form gameplay stuff. I recorded 3 Talishar games recently that I'm going to be like commentating over, analyzing, talking through. So, yeah, we'll talk about Reaping Blade some more, but it just, if a hero has more life than any other hero, they can't gain life. So essentially, if you stay at a lower life total than your opponent, they can't CYB. So it just like, it makes their hands awkward when they do draw into CYBs in that position. And it just like, it makes for like an interesting sort of interaction with their game plan, which is they're trying to gain a bunch of life. So Reaping Blade is a really essential sideboard piece right now, while we have those Count Your Blessings heroes in the meta. So the reason I'm talking about this, I know this is a long video, but I'm hoping that this is helpful because I wanted to show, so that x-axis, hard aggro, sacrificing a little bit in terms of consistency versus hard defense, mid-range, more consistent, right? I'm knocking my light around. I'm getting so animated. So what I've settled on, like my hope is that from this discussion, seeing what an aggro build looks like, seeing what a mid-range build looks like, I'm hoping that this allows you to come up with the list that works best for you, to suit your preferences in terms of like gameplay and lines, but also to suit the meta. Because I can't give you like, oh, this is by far the best Vynnset list. The meta is constantly evolving. The Hunted just released, and those heroes from the Hunted, our Syndras, our Fangs, our Marios, our Arachne Marionettes, are still finding their footing. They're still finding their place in the meta. And so, like, the way the meta looks, if it starts to lean more aggro, maybe we need more of an aggro-leaning list to be able to keep up with those heroes. Or maybe we want to lean in the opposite direction and be able to just, like, block out and grind the game out. But if we have heroes that are able to, like, take advantage of value over time, like Fang, when it has 3 fealty, the math becomes really good for them, and they don't mind grinding the game out. So maybe, again, we need a more aggro package compared to a mid-range list. So I'm going to talk through now the list that I've settled on, which I'm calling mid-range aggro. So this list has a lot of similarities with the mid-range build, but I'm also leaving myself enough room for an aggro package that allows me to like sort of lean in either direction when I need to into different matchups. So this is where I've settled. But again, this list is what works for me, and it works well for like the lines that I favor and the type of Vynnset play that I like. But I also think that it's like fairly well positioned in the current meta until it changes. Again, like these new heroes are finding their footing, and I don't know what the meta is going to look like in a week or 2 or 3 or a month. So that's why this is like my ultimate guide to Vynnset that I'm hoping will allow you to use this as a starting point and tweak it to suit your playstyle and to suit the meta. Okay? So without further ado, here is my current list that I am playing and that I am testing. Same, like the core is very similar to the mid-range build you'll see. Same default pieces, flail, bloodied oval, tunic, since the game's going to go a little bit longer most of the time as a default. Do have carapace in the sideboard if I'm just going to be blocking out and not getting value from my tunic resource. Creepers as a default, and Vexing Quillhand as a default. I do miss Grasp, by the way, sometimes. Going first, being able to pitch into it feels really good. I might try and find room in it, but anyways, currently not in the list. I have 2 Beseech the Demigons in the main board, so this is sort of an aggro-leaning piece in the main board. 2 of Shadow non-attack that buffs. I have Cull, again. It can kind of go back and forth depending if I'm leaning more aggro or defensive, so it's a pretty versatile piece. It also blocks for 3, so we're happy to run it. Deadwood Dirge, our consistency piece we don't need to discuss. And you'll see that, like, again, the core is very similar, Shadow Puppetries, and a bunch of RuneGate cards. Very similar to the mid-range build in terms of a main board. Some differences that I'll highlight: 8 of Deathly Wail instead of 9 of, so I cut 1 blue to give a little more damage output to the main board. So instead of 1 Phantom Banshee, I'm on 2 Phantom Banshee. So one way to think about is like I cut 1 blue Deathly Wail in order to favor big damage output. So 2 Phantom Banshee, 2 blue Deathly Wail, and then the other 6 Deathly Wails on red and yellow. Eloquent Eulogy, and then again, the rest of it is very like everything else is the same as I have in my mid-range build. The other big difference, though, is I'm not on the Galaxia package. So if we go back to the mid-range build, I have Sonata Galaxia, 5 Malefic Incantations, and 1 Runeblood Incantation. And I told you the idea is Sonata Galaxia is used to fetch either the Malefic Incantation or the Runeblood Incantation. So the thinking, I'll talk through my philosophy on this. So I do like Sonata. I think it's a good consistency piece. I think it fits well in the mid-range list, but it's slow. It does allow thinning of the deck, but here's my thought. So you do need a certain number of consistency pieces. The non-attack action consistency pieces, rune chant generators that I'm happy to draw into are the 5 Malefic Incantations and the 2 Sonata Galaxia. So that's 7 pieces I'm happy to draw into. Again, I mentioned I don't want to draw into Runeblood Incantation. It's simply a target for Sonata Galaxia. So then there's 7 pieces that I want to draw into and smooth out my deck by getting those consistency rune chant generators. I'm only going down 1. I'm cutting 3 cards. I'm cutting Sonata Galaxias, the 2 Sonata Galaxias, and the Runeblood Incantations. So I'm cutting 3 cards, but I'm only losing 1 of my rune chant generators, or like my consistency pieces, because now I'm going up 1 yellow incant. I'm just on 6 Malefic Incantations straight. So 3 red, 3 yellow. I have 6 consistency rune chant generators. I don't have the ability to thin my deck, which is fine, I think. But my thought is like I'm not sacrificing that much in terms of like those consistency pieces. I'm going from 7 to 6 in this reasoning, in this like philosophy thinking or way of thinking of it. Only going down 1, still have access to my consistency pieces, but I've made a bunch of room now for more aggro pieces, which you'll find in the sideboard. So this is a 51 card main board, which is mid-range leaning. Then now I have more tools in my inventory. If I want to lean defensive, I have my Haunting Renditions, once again, blocking 4 or preventing 2 making a rune chant. I have my reduced to rune chants, 4 block D-react. I have 2 Sink Belows, allow me to filter my hand if I need to. So I have 8, access to 8 defensive pieces. I then have my 1 Beseech the Demagon to make it a nice round 3 if I need to. If I want access to more Shadow non-attacks, good into Enigma, for example. I have 3 of Envelop in Darkness. They pair really nicely with Tunic again. If I'm siding Tunic out for Dyadic Carapace, if I don't think the game's going to go very long, then it's not something I'm putting in. Probably siding out Tunic, putting in Dyadic Carapace. So my aggro pieces are Mavrian Skies on yellow. And so, shout out Maxime Villeneuve, by the way. Great Canadian Flesh and Blood player. Met him a couple times. So he was recently on stream at a larger event. I think it was a Battle Hardened in Toronto. He was recently on stream piloting Vynnset. And he was playing Yellow Mavrian Skies. And it raised an eyebrow. And I reached out to him to talk, just like wondering if he was willing to share like his thinking on this piece, how he felt it performed. We also talked a little bit about bounding Demagon because I was considering putting it back in the list, but he convinced me on Yellow Mauve. It makes a lot of sense. Remember, Red Mauve in the aggro list, so this is just like access to more Go Again, essentially. But Yellow Mauve threatens 2 rune chants on hit rather than 3 at red. And that's fine. 2 rune chants paired with a Malefic Incantation basically unlocks her whole Banish Zone. Even 2 rune chants on its own unlocks a lot of our Banish Zone. We have a lot of 2-cost rune gates in the deck, right? So it threatens enough of a threat that the opponent needs to respect that attack. It also, the yellow pitch is relevant. Again, we don't like to pitch that much, but when we need to, like, we can pitch this to pay for a 2-cost rune gate card, which we have a lot of again in the list. So the yellow pitch plus the threat of 2 rune chant creations on, or creating 2 rune chants on hit, good enough. So 2 yellow Mavrian Skies. The other reason I wanted more Go Again, more access to pieces that give Go Again, is because I have 2 of Revel and Runeblood, arguably the most offensive aggro piece in the list, or that we have access to in this list. Again, makes us 4 rune chants under the right conditions. So the idea would be like, play Mavrian Skies, play our rune gate card, play out Revel and Runeblood, make 4 rune chants, play out another rune gate card maybe. So it does like play into this 2 wide, maybe 3 wide game plan. So I have access in this list to more aggro pieces, which allow me to lean aggro when I need to. Okay, even though the core is sort of like mid-rangey. So 2 Revels, 2 Mauves, those are my big sort of like damage output pieces. Then if I'm going like flat out aggro, maybe I go Beseech, 2 Revels, 2 Mauves, that's what, 5, 6, 7 in Reed. If I'm going first, that becomes more impactful. And then like a couple Envelops maybe, or I just go Beseech, Envelop, Revel, Mauve, and like 1, I don't know, Sink Below or something. Sink Below is actually good if I'm siding in more of these aggro pieces. It allows me to like filter my hand if I get into trouble with that. So the bottom line is I have access to more aggro leaning pieces that allow me to just like tailor my game plan to the matchup a little bit more. So this is the type of list that I've settled on that I think feels quite good. I don't think my results are like a good indication of the capabilities of this deck right now. I haven't been playing that much on Talishar, but like today, for example, like, you know, still figuring the list out, early days. Still like a 58% win rate is not bad. Pretty high going first. Vynnset likes to go first. But today I went 6-2. And the losses are like Bravo. We still get stomped on by Bravo. Mario's still finding its footing. Not worried about it right now. Viscera is like a 50-50. I think that's true. New is like a tough-ish matchup. not unwinnable, might actually be a 50-50, but I'm still learning to navigate that match. So anyways, I don't think the results are a great indication, but this list, which I will share, also has more of a thorough matchup guide. I have it like a default Aggro package, a default defense package, but I also have like several hero or matchup specific sideboards in here, which could help as a baseline. So anyways, all three of these lists will be in the description of the video, accessible. And yeah, I really hope that this can help you get off the ground, either, you know, for the first time with Vynnset, or help you figure out how you want to tweak your list to tailor your playstyle, or to tailor, you know, where we are in the meta right now into like these big bads. So anyways, I hope you found value in this video. I know it was a longer one, so thank you so much for those of you who are still here and still engaging and still listening. Please consider subscribing. As mentioned, I'm going to go back to the short form gameplay videos. I'm going to have some coming out on the video here, or on the channel here shortly, which will show this list, the mid-range aggro Vinny list in action. I'll talk through my thinking. I'll talk through my lines. So if you're interested in that, please subscribe and keep an eye out for those videos to post on the channel shortly. But without further, you know, ado, or I guess without drawing it out any further, gonna let you guys go. Thank you so much for watching once again. We will chat really soon, I'm sure. Cheers, everybody.